Yeah, it's wild. The Last of Us remake looks absolutely, like, it looks great, looks bloody great. The changes they've made, I think, are worth it. I think the only argument you can make in this situation is, I don't really want to buy it. You know? I feel like that's the only argument. I don't think there's any sort of, like, actual criticism or critique you can make here. Unless you genuinely believe that, like, The Last of Us 1 needed story changes, or that The Last of Us 1 needed, like, fundamental changes, right? To, like, what the game is. I don't know. I think the remake only accentuates the positives of The Last of Us, while also detracting from the negatives of The Last of Us. Like, I don't think that this game... I don't think the remake is doing anything wrong. I cannot see it. I just can't see it. As much as I've, like, tried to put myself in the shoes of the detractors, I'm like, I do not see it. I just don't see it. The game looks good. And to me, it's worth paying full price. Same way it was worth paying full price for Demon's Souls, you know, that was full price, and that game was just a visual overhaul that played exactly the same because that was the point. This one doesn't. This one has more changes because they've literally overhauled the AI. The AI in Demon's Souls is the same by design, and that's a positive thing. What are these comments? Let's go through some of these comments while we're here, because I feel like it would be nice to read through them. Most non-crunch game, it's true, pretty good. I feel like the big controversy for a lot of people is the pricing, £70 for this game with no upgrade path, even if you own the original and the PS4 remaster. However, you literally don't have to buy it if you're satisfied with the PS3 or PS4 version, just play that. That being said, The Last of Us 1 is my favorite game of all time, we're definitely getting the remake. Yeah, that's like a reasonable,
12 months,
I think.
That's fucking sick.
Mac, thank you so much for the 12 months. I think when you're making a remake, I don't think it needs this. But, you know, hey, Chad, man, thank you so much for the tier 1, I appreciate it. But yeah, I don't think it like, I don't know. I think for a remaster, yeah, you deserve an upgrade path. But for something that's a remake, I don't know. I don't know. Like, maybe, yeah, maybe you're half the price or something. But I do think this is, for all intents and purposes, like, the time and money that's gone into this. In a way, like, obviously, they don't have to pay for the mocap again and stuff. So that's something, that's a cost they don't have to worry about. But I do think this is being made as if it's a new game, right? It's not being made like just a quick remaster. You know, it's not... The only reason why you would think you should get it cheaper is because you've played it before. Yeah, they remade the game, so you should be paying the price of a game, exactly. They've remade the game using the same tech they did for The Last of Us Part 2. From the ground up, it's been built up again. It's not just they're taking the same game and touching it up, which is, you know, a much cheaper thing to do in game development. It's, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know, I mean, this person's reasonable. Like, they've said in the end, like, oh, so, you know, I'm gonna buy it, but, like, if, you know, you literally don't have to buy if you're satisfied. Which is, yeah, you don't. But I don't know if I don't really agree with the upgrade path thing. You know, it would be a really nice thing if they offered, well, you can get it for $50 instead of $70 if you own the original or something. It'd be like, oh, that's quite a nice thing to do. It isn't a remaster, it is a remake. So, you know, on that premise alone, I think it makes sense. It's still lazy for Naughty Dog to put this much time and money into a new version of a game we've already played when they'd be putting into a whole new game or series. I literally addressed this in the video. This is so dumb. I believe this is something they want to make. And also, like, it's not like, no one's forcing them. I don't believe this is a situation where Sony was like, that's just what you want. That's like being entitled. You're being like what? It's still, yeah, also, yeah, the whole statement is like, yeah, it's still lazy for Naughty Dog to put this much time and money into something. Like, what? It's not lazy, is it? It's not lazy. It's what Naughty Dog wants to do, clearly. Like, they seem very passionate about this project. I don't think that's reasonable, because that's just being entitled. Like, well, I would prefer a new game, so therefore, objectively, this is a bad decision and they're lazy. As someone who's never played the original but always wanted to, I could care less if it's a real remake. The fact it's coming to PC makes it all worth it. That's very nice. Thank you, Zachary. I think it's undeniable that the discourse around The Last of Us has been ruined ever since Part 2. Even with other first-party titles, it's been off. People are complaining about God of War reusing a boat animation, so I wouldn't be surprised if Ragnarok doesn't hit as well as it should with critics. As an owner of both the PS5 and Xbox, it simply seems like some people don't want to give PlayStation their flowers this time around, no matter how well they perform. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think I'd agree. The discourse around sequels has been really, really, really odd, especially with, like, God of War, people being like, oh, it's just a DLC. It's like, well, it's not, is it? Like, they've built a whole new game. It just looks similar to the original because it's a fucking sequel. You know, what a weird thing to say. Like, no one was mad when Uncharted 2 looked similar to Uncharted 1, but was just a bit better. It's just like a weird, I don't know. I just finished watching the Last of Us remake video. I agree with you. I just think there are sections of the game where the original remaster looks better. I think that's batshit crazy. But, I mean, it's up to you, isn't it? L-Take. I'm just gonna like it. I'll heart it. L-Take from Geralt of Rivia. Geralt of Rivia. Gameplay is the main critique for The Last of Us Remake. I just want more fluid combat that allows you to be more aggressive. Dodge mechanic would be nice as well. I guess, I mean, I just feel like the way the first game is built, and I guess if you're remaking it, you could change it, but I quite like the way Joel plays. I don't know. I guess for me, I feel like Joel, I like that Ellie plays differently. Like, I just don't think Joel should be dodging around or laying on the ground. I mean, it's not a bad point, but I guess for me, I just never really thought about it. Like, I just don't really need it. I guess, I don't know. I feel like the way Joel controls is right. To add in those things would maybe be a bit out of place and feel a bit weird. Maybe add some dodges in, maybe you could. Maybe make it a bit less nimble than Ellie. I don't know. For sure, the last 15 minutes of the game when they turn Joel into a monster. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know what the fuck that means. Is The Last of Us Part 1 a true remake? For sure. The last 15 minutes of the game when they turn Joel into a monster. What does that mean? That's not an answer to the question. I think the issue is that no one has proper definitions of what a remake or remaster is, and in my opinion, there's actually 4 categories rather than 2. Holy shit, slip, clip, chip, nip, dip. Thank you so much for the 2 gifted subs! So there's remaster, remake, reimagining, and reboot, but I feel like those last 2 kind of aren't the same, but in my opinion, a remake plays fundamentally the same as the original with remade visuals, and reimagining plays completely differently. Therein lies the difference. To give some examples, remasters, the Nathan Drake Collection, Return to Arkham, The Last of Us Remastered, Dark Souls Remastered, the Ezio Collection. Remake, Shadow of the Colossus, Demon's Souls, The Last of Us Part 1, Crash Insane Trilogy. Reimaginings, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Reboots, Tomb Raider 2013, Modern Warfare 2019. I mean, this one definitely is not like the rest, right? This one's definitely not like the rest, but I can understand this, like, classifying it like this. But also, these ones are remakes, right? It's like you divide up remakes into 2 sets of remakes. It's like remakes that follow the original, remakes that follow a different structure. But these are still remakes because they're remaking the game. These ones aren't because they're not remaking the game. They're making a new game with the same name. But, like, I get making that distinction, I guess. The fact they've improved the AI, I think, is going to greatly change the way you interact with scenarios. I think that does a lot more than people give it credit for. In terms of how much you're going to have to, like, make sure you're moving around, being aware of your scenarios and stuff. Like, surroundings, sorry, not scenarios. That doesn't make any sense. 1406, it's a valid reason. What did I say? Discourse around this game is pretty dumb. You look at Shadow of the Colossus, you look at... What? That's not... What did I even say? That's not even a proper... It's a valid reason? I didn't say that. The discourse around this game is pretty dumb. I feel the discourse around this game is pretty dumb. It's a good reason. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's kind of crazy, because normally you get comments like that have just, like, watched the first 30 seconds. This guy's literally watched 14 minutes, and he's still sticking to his guns. He's still saying, no, valid reason. Alright. Alright. Fair enough, I suppose. Yeah, see, this is fair enough. That's fair. Like, that's literally what I said in the video. Like, yeah, you don't think it's worth $70, so don't buy it. Like, yeah, there you go. That's not a reason that it is bad, you know what I mean? It's when... Oh, shit, I didn't mean to do that. It's like when people start using this as a reason that it's bad is when it gets weird. Because it's like, yeah, like, you know, this isn't worth $70, I'll stick with the remaster. It's like, that is a fair thing to do. You don't think it's worth $70, so you won't play it. That makes sense, that's fine. But it's then when people go, because of this opinion I have concluded the game is actually bad. That's when it gets weird. It's like, that's an odd one. Some of my comments are brain dead. So, these so far have been fine, though. The ones that I'm reading so far have been fine. It's $125 in Australia. Yeah, that's because your currency is ridiculously inflated, though. So I'm not, like, trying to argue it's perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But I just think the negatives are so tiny to me that it's like, yeah, if I make a review of it, if I make, like, a critique video of it, yeah, I'll definitely throw in there that they didn't overhaul the gameplay. And that's, like, part of, you know, maybe you could find this as a negative. I guess for me, it's not so much. Do you justify the price with no previous owner discount for the people who bought the $50 remaster but couldn't play it due to accessibility features that got added in the remake? I get people like myself who have never played or bought The Last of Us 1 paying $60, $70 for this, but for people who did buy older copies and find themselves unable to, but can now, thanks to the accessibility features being introduced and forced to pay additional fees due to their disability. That's a stretch, dude. Oh, that's a reach. That's a real reach. That's mental. That's a mental thing to say, I think. That's crazy. Saying that somebody who has disabilities deserves a discount on The Last of Us Part 1 because they bought The Last of Us originally and it didn't have accessibility features, so they couldn't play it properly, so they deserve to pay less now. But, like, I feel like that's a bit of a stretch, I would say. That's a bit of a stretch there. I will say that. I honestly believe people's problem with it is the fact that it's called Part 1. Before, it was able to be classified as one story, completely separate from Part 2. I mean, it wasn't because it was, you know, Part 2 is the sequel, but that's alright. Now it's called Part 1. It has to be seen as the first story and therefore destroys the canon argument. Yes, they are going to change the Doctor because before he was a random NPC, but they fully realized him in Part 2, so that will still play the same. We just don't know who he is because Part 2, he's still a random NPC to Joel. What? Sort of think it's a shit game. Chadman! The fuck? Okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. Let's play some fucking Subnautica. I'm done going through fucking YouTube comments. Oh, blimey. Oh, blimey.